I remember filling out in a yearbook, sort of what are your dreams and aspirations, and I filled out, to be a professional player, and it was just something I always dreamt of and always wanted, and that was 16. I mean, that's quite late. I think I always wanted to, but how was it going to happen? I wasn't sure what that pathway looked like, and if there was a pathway.
I was going to say that. Was there a pathway at that time, or was it a case of you had to make it yourself?
Clive Bass was the very first to, and it was a case of him being seen and being over in West Ham and all of those sort of things, and so for me, it was going to be the same thing. It was like an English team being in Bermuda, perhaps seeing me play, and then picking me up, and that's coincidentally what happened. It's weird. You're just going on and playing as a kid. But I thought that was the way it was going to happen because I wasn't traveling to England. And coincidentally, I did travel to England when I was 15. I went with another high school that wasn't my high school. They selected me to be part of a group of boys that went, and we played against Leicester and a couple other teams, and we done fairly well. But my high school team, I felt would have done a lot better because we had a lot of skillful players. And the school I went with, they had 2 or 3 good players, but I just wish it was my high school team that I went with because we had some really skillful players. Yeah.
So how often do you go back home these days?
Well, yes, you see the tan still there, so try to get back every year, you know. It's always good to go back, because Bermuda's beautiful, it's wonderful. It's just lovely. It's because people, it's so different because it's small and everyone knows you, so people will see you and just say, hey, Shaun, and you just, hey, and they sort of remember you when you were this age. And there are times there are closer friends that you'll have a 5-minute conversation with. And in fact, in Bermuda, it's rude to not speak, So it's like, it's rude if I see Paul and don't acknowledge Paul. That's just the culture in Bermuda. I didn't see you, Paul. I was shooting from the byline.
Have you ever been with Shaun to Bermuda? Because obviously you two are genuinely really good friends, aren't you? So have you ever been back?
I've not. He keeps promising me to look after me, but he's never quite came through yet.
Listen, Bermuda tourism, right? You've heard it here.
Yeah.
Make sure we get the invite. We get it sorted.
Let's get it done.
Get you out there. I think you are underplaying it maybe, because you're a hero back there, aren't you? So when you go home, presumably, I'm not saying you're like mobbed at the airport, but presumably you get, there's a lot of love for you.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know how to respond to that, but it is. It is. But Bermudians are genuinely just warm-hearted, friendly people, and tourists that tend to go there initially when people just walk across and you go, good morning, and people are like, was that to me? But that's just how we are. We just speak to people and say, hello, have a good day, and keep moving. So generally, Bermudians are that way, and that's why it was, one of the tourist destinations the way it was, because the Bermudians made it that way for tourists as well. So that's ingrained in me.
We should be doing this podcast there, shouldn't we, really? Let's be honest.
There we go.
Part
two.
Yeah.
I got a location right on the beach as well.
Beautiful.
Just going like the start of the career to go through it. What was it like, culturally wise, going from Bermuda to Manchester?
Yeah. Well, what a shock.
How did you find it? Yeah.
What a
for lots
shock.
of different reasons.
Well, you would know. I was always complaining about it being cold, but it was. I mean, I remember. Like going back to even when I was at Rotherham, early days, it snowed, and I had never seen snow, and I automatically just thought, I mean, suppose I heard these stories, but I just automatically thought, training was cancelled. Like it's snowing, no one trains clearly. So I'm at home, and phone rings, and the manager's like, where are you? Well, waiting on you. What do you mean where I'm home? I'm home. I'm in bed.
It's snowing.
He says, we're training. I was like, we training this? And that was the real, and then they played. So they waited for me, and they played British Bulldog, which is obviously you're just trying to get across a line in a certain number, and they all allowed me to keep winning right up to the end. So I'm the last one, as me and another, and they really timed it. So they really get me right at the end with the snowballs, and they're just absolutely creaming me. And I was like, retrain when it snows, and I learned that lesson then.
Lesson learned, yeah. I didn't really want to talk about this, but your first club in England was Manchester United.
Yes.
Yeah. How did that come about?
Yeah, Manchester United went to Bermuda in a mid-season break, and at the time I was in America on a scholarship, and well, I had went to Bermuda on the break in between the scholarship, and Manchester United was there, and in Bermuda they had a double header, which is basically 2 games, a game and then one to follow straight after, and the first game was the under-18s playing the under-21s, Bermuda national team. And then the second was the national team playing against Man United. So I was seen and scouted in that game. Alex Ferguson and his crew had said, we need to offer this kid here trials. And it took ages for a work permit because at the time I had something like 19 international caps, and I needed 20 to make it easier for me to get the work permit. So Bermuda was arranging a national game so that I could play, so I could get my 20th cap to then make it easier to then be able to come over and play and work. So, but yeah, I was at Manchester United. Listen, at the time from Bermuda out, I went to Scarborough. And not even sure if Scarborough was a great football team at this time. But I would have went to back then. Scarborough was in League Two. I would have went to Scarborough. I would have went to any team because it was an opportunity just to play professional.
And what was your experience at United like? How did it go for you there?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I remember times like Sir Alex Ferguson used to have sessions, and he used to have conversations with like the senior players, and certainly with the reserves would be playing against the first team, and it'd be like a bit of a game scrimmage, and it'll be a free kick, and he'll sort of leave it to Brian Robson and say, well, you do what you think. And I remember vividly sort of remembering like leaving it to them to sort of be creative and take ownership of that, as opposed to this is what I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And at the time, United were the dominant team, and they had Brian Robson and players like that who were absolute legends.
Yeah, just obviously we all want to talk about when you came to City, but talking about a culture shock from Bermuda to Manchester, it must have been one going from Manchester to Rotherham as well.
Yes. You know what? First of all, it was just cold. I just found England cold. I mean, I used to be the last one trying to warm up and everything, but the Yorkshire people, I'm ever so glad I went there, because at United it was you had the best kids, so players just play, give it to the player, receive it, play. But at Rotherham it was, if you're free, the manager at that time was saying, I don't care if you're free, put it in the channel. And so it was, I was just like, this is not football. So having to adjust to that. But the fans, they were hardy fans, and they were like, we spent good money to come see you play, so you better put a shift in. So that experience shaped me and helped me a lot to adapt to what was to come in England. Because at United, it really wasn't. It was, you're playing with good players, you're playing reserve games against other teams, but you're primarily winning because you have better players. You're winning 2-1, 3-1. You lose the odd game 1-0, but you have better players that could just get it to players and they'll deal with it. And at Rotherham, the coach was like, I was like, I'm free. He's not giving it. He said, no, we're not good enough to keep it. That's how the coaching was back then. It's going in the channel. So I really started understanding, the two strikers, one short, one in behind, me and my mate. And I started to get clever enough. I was clever enough. Go ahead, Paul, you go in behind.
Yeah.
I'll go short.